1922, in the ancient city of Larsa, Iraq, a British explorer dug up a small clay block, just 20 centimeters tall, smaller than a textbook. But what was written inside has kept scholars arguing for over 100 years. This clay prism lists the kings of ancient Sumer. One king ruled for 43,200 years. Not a typo, not a translation error. 43,200 years. And here's the thing. The question is not whether this is real. The real question is far more interesting than that. Why did the Sumerians write this in the first place? Let's start with what we actually know about the Sumerians. Around 4,500 BCE, in southern Mesopotamia, a civilization appeared out of almost nowhere. They built the first cities. They invented the first writing system. They created a legal code before most of the world knew what a law was. They gave us the 60-second minute, the 60-minute hour, the 360-degree circle. All of that came from Sumer. These were not primitive people guessing at things. They kept obsessively detailed records, tax receipts, trade logs, land contracts. Everything was written down. So when the Sumerians decided to write down a list of their kings, you would expect it to be careful, accurate, reliable. And for the most part, it is. Until you hit the section that covers the kings before the Great Flood. And that is where things get genuinely strange. Before we go further, I want to hear from you. Scroll down right now and drop one word. Type symbol if you think these massive numbers carry some kind of ancient hidden meaning. Type mistake if you think this is just a unit of measurement that got mistranslated. Here is what the Weld-Blundell Prism actually says. Before the Great Flood, there were 8 kings who ruled across 5 cities, and together they ruled for a total of 241,200 years. The first king, Alulim, ruled the city of Eridu for 28,800 years. The longest reign on the list belongs to Enmin-Luana, 43,200 years. The shortest pre-flood reign, Ubaratutu, lasted 18,600 years. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Right after the flood, the numbers start dropping fast. The first post-flood king ruled for 1,200 years, then 960 years, then 900 years. A few generations later, we are down to 200 years, then 100 years, then normal human lifespans. It is like watching a faucet slowly turn off. And then, buried inside this same list, there is a name that stops historians cold. Gilgamesh, the hero of the oldest written epic in human history. Listed right there as the 5th king of Uruk. Reign length, 126 years. Still long, but archaeologists now largely agree that Gilgamesh was a real person who ruled around 2500 BCE, which raises an uncomfortable question. If one name on this list is confirmed real, what does that say about the rest? Here is the part of the story most channels skip entirely. The actual artifact is not hidden. It is not locked away in some restricted archive. It sits in the Ashmolean Museum at the University of Oxford. Collection number AN 1923.444. Anyone can go see it. The prism stands 20 centimeters tall and 9 centimeters wide. 4 sides, 2 columns of cuneiform script on each side. Written around 1800 BCE. That makes it roughly 3,800 years old. At least 16 separate versions of this king list have been found across Mesopotamia. Most came from the ancient city of Nippur. Now here is the data point that most people overlook. The Sumerians did not count time the way we do. They used a base 60 mathematical system. Their unit of time was called a sar. 1 sar equaled 3,600 years. 43,200 years. The longest reign on the list. It equals exactly 12 sar. 12, a perfectly round number in history. They used their Sumerian mathematics system. And here is where it gets stranger. The number 43,200 does not only appear in Sumer. Hindu cosmology describes their ancient Kali Yuga, lasting 432,000 years. Viking mythology says 432,000 warriors. They will fight at Ragnarok. Ancient Babylonian records use this same base number across their completely unrelated ancient texts. The number 432, in some form or multiple, shows up across at least 6 ancient civilizations. with no known contact with each other. That is not a coincidence historians can easily wave away. So who actually found this thing? Herbert Weld-Blundell was not a professional archaeologist. He was a wealthy British aristocrat who funded his own expeditions across Africa and the Near East. In 1922, his team was excavating the ruins of Larsa in what is now southern Iraq. That is where they pulled this prism out of the ground. He donated it to the Ashmolean Museum in 1923. It has been there ever since. The first complete scholarly translation was published in 1939 by Thorkild Jacobsen, a Sumerologist at Harvard University. No mysterious researcher fired for getting too close. No documents sealed away from the public. No whistleblower with a stolen hard drive. This artifact has been openly available to scholars for over 100 years. And that actually makes the mystery more interesting, not less. Because the people who have spent their entire career studying this document, some of the most rigorous historians on the planet, still disagree on what it means. So what does mainstream scholarship say about these impossible reign lengths? There are three serious theories on the table. Theory 1. This is a political document, not a history book. Researchers at Oxford's Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative describe the Sumerian king list as a theological and political text. The Sumerians believed that kingship literally descended from heaven. Every dynasty that came to power wanted to claim a divine origin. By inserting mythological pre-flood rulers with godlike lifespans at the top of the list, whoever commissioned the text was essentially saying, our line of kings goes all the way back to the gods. It was not history. It was propaganda. Extremely well preserved, 4,000-year-old propaganda. Theory 2. The units of measurement were misread or mistranslated. Thorkild Jacobsen himself proposed that scribes may have confused different Sumerian numerical units when copying the text. If you replace 1 sar with 1 year instead of 3,600 years, the numbers become far more manageable. Still long, but not impossible. The problem is that even with this adjustment, some numbers still refuse to behave. Theory 3. Oral history and mythology were never meant to be separated. Scholar Samuel Noah Kramer, who spent decades translating Sumerian texts, argued that ancient cultures did not draw a clean line between what we call history and what we call myth. They were the same category. Long reigns were a way of communicating importance, not duration. Saying a king ruled for 43,000 years was closer to saying this reign mattered for eternity. All three theories have serious supporters. None of them have fully won the argument. That debate is still open today. Here is the part I find most fascinating. It is not the big numbers that are interesting, it is the moment they stop. Before the flood, tens of thousands of years per king. Right after, 1,200. 2 generations later, 300 years. A few more, 60 years. Completely normal. You can watch mythology become history in real time on this clay. This is evidence of how ancient humans thought about time, power, and the sacred. Large numbers meant large significance. They were not faking. Somewhere in the mythology, they quietly slipped in real kings, real cities, and real events. Gilgamesh was real. The walls of Uruk were real. The Sumerians were just telling history in a different way. What are we losing by insisting history can only be told one way? Perhaps it is time to look at the numbers differently. So what do you actually walk away with from this? Lesson 1. The 60-second minute you use every day came from Sumerian mathematics. The base 60 system they invented is still running quietly, inside your phone, your clock, and every circle ever drawn. Lesson 2. When you read ancient documents, the frame matters more than the words. You cannot apply modern expectations to ancient ways of communicating. Lesson 3. The line between history and mythology is a modern invention. Ancient peoples did not experience that distinction. Understanding that gap is the difference. The Sumerians left behind more than 500,000 inscribed tablets. Historians estimate we have translated fewer than 30% of them. Whatever the Weld-Blundell Prism is telling us, there are hundreds of thousands more tablets waiting. The picture is nowhere near complete. Before Gilgamesh, the king list mentions a man named Etana. The list describes him as a shepherd who tended his flock in Sumer, who ascended to heaven riding on the back of an eagle. For centuries, scholars assumed this was pure myth. Then, archaeologists found an ancient Sumerian cylinder seal, dating back to around 2400 BCE, depicting a man flying upward on the back of a large bird. That image is sitting in a museum right now. If you want to know what it actually shows, that is the next video. Hit subscribe so you do not miss it, and drop your one word in the comments below, symbol or mistake. I read every single one.